All right, everybody, thanks for joining us this morning. This is Don Gulling, CEO of Verteks Consulting. I've also got the pleasure of having on the line a very educated speaker, a specialist in multi-factor authentication, Alex Cagnoni, who's a director of authentication for WatchGuard. Today, we're going to talk about a simple and effective multi-factor authentication solution that can help you better protect your network, better protect your credentials, and keep you secure from a lot of the threats that we see today from the outside. Credential theft, as a lot of us know, is one of the #1 causes of outside attacks. And multi-factor authentication is a proven, effective, reliable, and affordable way for you to protect your network from credential theft. At the end of the presentation, we're also going to have some special offers for those of you that are live on the webinar. You're not going to want to miss those. Some great discounts, and also a chance to win some free multi-factor authentication licenses for your network. With that said, I'd like to lastly say we have a question and answer dashboard in the webinar. You'll see that in your pop-up. We'll be closely monitoring those throughout the webinar and trying to answer them as we go along. And a few different times during the webinar, Alex will pause to make sure that we have a chance to get all questions asked and answered. In a way of introduction, I'll say that me and Alex have been talking about multi-factor authentication for business and government for a long time. Alex is a real specialist in this. This is his primary focus in securing these credentials. He's an expert, and we're glad to have him with us. Alex, with that, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Don. Welcome, everybody. It's a pleasure to be joining Verteks in this webinar, talking about one of my passions, which is authentication. You know, I've been in this market for more than 20 years. I've seen a lot, the attacks, the evolution on tokens. When we started with tokens, I don't know if any of you remember, like in the 90s with those hardware tokens, bulky ones, really heavy to carry around. So during this session, I'm going to talk about some of the tokens, the evolution of the multi-factor authentication. Also, I'm going to talk about some of the attacks and how you can protect that with against those attacks with multi-factor authentication. And again, if you have any questions, just put in the dashboard. We're going to take some time to answer those. Okay, so let's get started. The first thing I would like to talk about is password security, and this question mark is really something I did it on purpose because it's really hard to talk about how you can protect passwords. And hopefully I'm going to be able to pass some of the key things that are happening in the market, so we are all aware. So what's the best thing to do? I mean, how can you protect the passwords? How they are stealing the passwords? So talking a little bit about the passwords, their top vulnerability. And why is that? It's the #1 top action used in breaches. So stolen credentials, this is how usually it starts. They need the hackers need to have access to the network. How do they get access to the network? They're not going physically to the company. They're going to try to access, and the way they're going to do is by stealing a credential and getting a remote access to the network. Once they're inside the network, they're going to try and get privileged access to other systems. So this is the top action when we're talking about breaches. Another thing, it's 81% of all the breaches worldwide. This is according to Verizon Data Breach Investigations report. They're leveraging either stolen or weak passwords. So this is another big factor. It just shows that in any type of attack, or most of the times, they're going to be using stolen passwords, stolen credentials, or try to hack your passwords. The #1 malware in 2018, and this is according to the WatchGuard Internet Security Report. As you know, a lot of our customers, they provide some feedback. They allow the fireboxes to provide some feedback, some logs, so we can analyze and see what's going on. So the biggest malware, the #1 malware that was blocked in 2018 was Mimikatz. And what's Mimikatz? It's a Trojan. It's a Trojan for Windows, and the main thing that it does is it steals passwords and credentials. So it doesn't really matter how hard your password is. It doesn't matter if your password has 50 characters, numbers, special characters. If you have Mimikatz in your computer, it's going to steal your password because it can dump the password from the memory. So this was one of the biggest threats in 2018. And finally, data breach victims in 2017. So there's a lot of talk about I'm a small business, or I'm a small or medium business, I'm in the mid-market, maybe I'm not a target for the attackers. And guess what? More than 50% of all the data breach victims in 2017 were categorized as small business. So how hard it is for a hacker to steal a password? Those are some of the most common techniques. The first one is phishing emails. We're used to that. We receive those emails. Usually they use some common fact, something that's happening today in the market. They're going to use that either to try to make you click on an attachment that will install some Trojan in your machine, or maybe click on a link that will redirect you to a fake website. Once you're redirected to a fake website, it can do a couple of things, usually a couple of things. It might have something that will install a Trojan in your machine, or it might just start asking you for your information from your passwords. It will pretend being a known website. It could be mimicking Amazon.com website. It could be mimicking a banking site. So with that, the user might be convinced to put their email, their credentials, and their passwords inside these fake websites. Once they have that, they can use your credentials or they can sell it in the deep web. Keyloggers installed on user machines is also not a very common technique. So if they are able to install those keyloggers, if they're able to install this Trojan that implement a keylogger, it basically will replicate or will get all or collect everything that you type in your keyboard. So if you type your password on a website, if you type your password when logging into your computer, anywhere you type your password, it's going to get and sent to a central station where the hacker will control and get all the data from your machine. So this is a very easy way they use to get your passwords. Again, with keyloggers, it doesn't really matter how hard your password is, they're going to get your password. Mimikatz, we already talked about that. Basically what it does, it dumps passwords from the memory. And once they do that, they can, and sometimes they can even dump the passwords of an administrator. Usually what it does, it gets the passwords from memory for the most recent people that logged into a computer. So if an administrator logged into a computer in the last few hours, it might be in memory, and Mimikatz might be able to dump the password as well, not only yours, but from the network admin. And another common technique are the cracking tools, like brute force and dictionary attack. So it tries to use brute force against a list of hashed passwords, or use a dictionary attack, basically with the most common passwords, and also the names and words, common words. They put in together some digits. They can put more than 2 words together. So they try a lot of combinations. Sometimes we think that by combining 2 words, it's secure enough, but it's not. Most of those dictionary attacks will be able to get your password if you're just combining a couple of words. Even if you have those 2 words together would get you like 20 characters, it will still get your password.
Alex,
and the way they get...
go ahead.
Sure.
I was going to say, just to interject briefly, I know we got a lot of experienced IT professionals on the line, and I'm still confronting folks who they know that people would be subject to a phishing attack, but they're doing things to prevent phishing attacks, and they're trying to educate the users about phishing attacks so they don't click those links, although it still does happen. I want to give one quick example. Just yesterday, we did a phishing simulation on a large medical practice. They're not on this call, but a dozen people clicked through a link, which would have been enough to get a keylogger on there. Another 6 of them literally entered their email address and their password. And the simulation that we did was a Office 365 quarantined email attack, where we sent them a message that said that they had quarantined emails and they needed to log into the 365 account to retrieve them. And a half a dozen of them went all the way through typing their email address and password. So, and that customer is somebody that is going through cybersecurity training and has had phishing training. So these phishing attacks still, I think, the number one. But even if they didn't click all the way through and type in their credentials, a keylogger still could have been installed, and Mimikatz could have been used, and they could have gotten in. So it is still happening.
Yeah, that's a great example. I mean, probably I receive one of your emails about the quarantine Office 365. I receive almost every day phishing emails, and it's really common. And sometimes people wonder, oh, how can people fall into that? Because sometimes you receive like a phishing email pretending to be a bank. You don't even have an account with this bank. But what really happens is that they buy those email lists, and they're going to send this phishing email to everyone in this email list. Maybe 5%, maybe 2% will click on this phishing email and will type in their information, and that's enough for them. So phishing emails, it's really, really common. Even though we do a lot of education, we try to teach people, a lot of people still fall into that. And it's really common for them to use recent facts. So something happened yesterday or something's happening today, it's in the news. So, and then all of a sudden you receive those emails, they pop into your inbox, and then you just click on that and you put your information. Oh, if you want to read this data, put your email password, and a lot of people will put, unfortunately. So just one more thing I wanted to show about this security landscape. This is the threat landscape report. This is online information. You can go to secplicity.org and see that. This is the report I just extracted from 2019, since January 1st until yesterday or 2 days ago. The second largest malware attack, or the attempt to attack, because this is what we blocked, was Mimikatz. So it's really what people are using. They're trying to install Mimikatz to steal your passwords. So some of the most recent cases about attacks or involving passwords. So this first one is not really an attack. Basically, what we were told is that Facebook mistakenly stored millions of users' passwords in plain text. So it was a file with millions of users and passwords that was available there. So it wasn't really an attack, but anyone with access to this file with all those passwords, they could try and use those passwords not to go into your Facebook account. They're going to try to use that to go into your company account, to your Amazon.com account, because a lot of the users, they use the same password in a lot of places. The same password they use, for example, to remotely access your company, the same network password they're using for their social media. This is a really common practice, and the hackers know about it, and they're going to try and use that. Citrix, this was another really recent case where FBI advised them that the hackers were using a tactic. It's known as password spraying. Basically, it tries to use very weak passwords, something like the default password for an application, or just the most common passwords. It won't try to crack your password. It just tries different passwords and see if the user is using a very weak password. And guess what? It worked for a few users. So it's really hard to control how complex the passwords your users are putting in when accessing the network. And sometimes it's just some like random access they're building up for some tests, some unknown reason. But the weak password was there, and with that, they were able to get inside the network and then get access to a lot of Citrix systems. So this was something recent that happened. And another one that I like to mention is the Reddit case. So Reddit was implementing SMS as a two-factor authentication. So basically, people would put their username and password, and then they would receive a one-time password through SMS, through the messaging system. What they found out is that the hackers exploited the SMS. So there's a lot of ways to exploit SMS. And they did that, and they were able to get into a lot of those accounts. And it was really interesting because they said that, well, we thought we had two-factor authentication with SMS. Maybe we were wrong. So this is really something that a lot of companies are still implementing, even though in 2016, NIST said that they wouldn't consider SMS as a two-factor authentication anymore because of all the ways you can exploit that. But still, a lot of companies are using that, and it's not really a two-factor authentication anymore. So how MFA can help? So how can it be really effective? Let's go back to those cases then. How MFA could have protected those companies in those cases. So in the case of Reddit, push-based authentication is when you receive a request to authenticate to a system in your phone using a mobile app. So you have a mobile token, something unique that you have in your phone that you activated, is unique to your user and your phone, and you receive a push-based authentication, asking if you're trying to authenticate to a specific account, you're trying to authenticate to a VPN, but in this case, are you trying to authenticate to your Reddit account? If you would have received that, maybe you were now watching this presentation and you receive a push message asking if you're trying right now to access Reddit, you would say, well, that's not me, so I would just deny and block the attack. At the same time, I would have known that maybe my password is compromised, so it's time to change the password. Citrix, the same thing we could have used. I mean, any remote access to the network, you should protect using push-based authentication, because if someone tries to use a weak password, if a hacker, an attacker, would try to use a weak password, and if it would work, the user would still receive a push message before the connection is complete. So they would receive a push message and they would deny the connection because it's not them. And about Facebook, the multi-factor authentication wouldn't prevent what happened there because it was some sort of mistake. I don't know how they got this file with passwords there, but let's say that one of your company users is using the same password from the company in their social media accounts like Facebook. If the attacker would try and use this password from Facebook to access your company, the user would have received a push-based authentication as well, push requests in their phone. So even if the user is using the same password for their social media and their company account, at least the company would have been protected. The hacker would still get into the Facebook account, the user's Facebook account, but at least your company would have been protected. And this is why remote access requires MFA. That's really important because this is how everything starts. And talking about some multi-factor authentication factors, we call it form factors. I'm just talking about a few ones in here because whenever we talk about multi-factor authentication, a lot of things comes into our mind. The first thing, maybe it's a SMS as a token. And as we talked, it's insecure. It was deprecated. So NIST said, well, this is not secure. We're not considering 2FA anymore. So, and it also depends on the carrier coverage. If you're traveling, if you're in another country, maybe the SMS won't arrive at the same time as well. So there's a lot of issues with SMS. Gartner recommended, I think a year ago, they already recommended people to migrate from SMS tokens to mobile push tokens.
Hey, Alex.
How do OTP? Yep.
One thing I would say on that is, for those that are on the call, if you're using an SMS-based multi-factor authentication platform now, it is better than nothing. So definitely it's better than nothing. But now that we've got a reliable, affordable, easy-to-use multi-factor that's push-based, it is significantly more secure and easy to use. So we are highly encouraging people to migrate away from SMS-based for all those reasons you said. Now that true multi-factor is available, affordable, and easy to use. But a question popped up to me, hey, isn't something better than nothing? Yeah, something is better than nothing, but we're talking about kind of migrating to a best-in-class platform now.
Yeah, that's a good point. It's better than nothing, but just keep in mind that you have to think about migrating at some point in time, because it's like sometimes I compare with those TSA locks that you use for your luggage when you're traveling. So you put the TSA lock and you feel you're secure. There's already a lot of places where you know how you can build up your own key to those locks and open the locks and open your luggage. So it's a false sense of security. So if you're comfortable with that, it's really it can be really damaging for you. So I would definitely SMS. It's better than only password, but I would still like look into migrating to something that will give a better security. Hardware OTP tokens, it's another common case, but they're expensive, they're hard to carry, there's the logistics, how do I get those tokens into the hands of the users? Today, a lot of companies, they have remote users, they're traveling, how do I get them if the user loses their token, how you get a new one? So there's all of those things involved. And when you talk about USB tokens, which are the connected ones, they have the same problems as the OTP. Plus, they might need drivers. And one of the things that really common, okay, now if I'm authenticating through my phone, if I'm on a cab, I'm open my browser, I'm authenticating to a service, and then I need my token. How you're going to connect your USB token to your mobile phone? So this is another problem with those type of tokens. Desktop OTP tokens is another. It used to be common in the past because it was used mostly for VPNs in the late 90s, when OTP tokens were used mostly for remote access. Now it's not that common, but still some companies ask, do you have something like that? Well, it's not very secure because of Windows. It's not a very secure platform. It cannot use to protect when you're logging into the computer itself because you have only access to that once you log in. And it's not very portable. The same situation if I'm on a cab and I need to access a service in my mobile phone. If I have to authenticate with a token, I would have to open my computer, log in order to get an OTP. So it's not the best user experience. A lot of people ask me about Google Authenticator. Oh, that's free. That's something that you can use. It's a free technology. Basically, Google Authenticator, it basically provides a way that you can generate a dynamic, time-based, one-time passwords on your app. But it doesn't have any type of backend. So how do you integrate Google Authenticator with my firewall? How do I provide? Does it come with a Radius backend? No, there's no Radius backend. How you integrate with web single sign-on applications? You can't do that. So Google Authenticator was something developed more targeting social media and consumers. It's not something that was targeted to companies. And finally, push-based mobile tokens. This is the trend. This is how the market is moving to, because it gives more portability. Whenever you receive a push request over your phone, if it's implemented the right way, like we implement, we provide context information to authenticate. Who's trying to authenticate? Where is this authentication coming from? So which resource are you trying to access? So you have all this information in your phone. So if I'm here in Seattle today, I receive a push message saying that someone in New York is trying to authenticate to the VPN, the company's VPN. Is that you? I would say click on deny and block the attack. That's why push-based mobile tokens, it's becoming more and more popular because it's also more secure. It's harder for social engineering to be able to convince users to do something they're not willing to. Now, we talked a lot about SMS as a token, but again, is it secure? It doesn't require extra hardware. It works in any mobile phone, but those are some of the attacks that you can do on a SMS. So again, it's better than nothing, like Don mentioned, but it's not the best way to use. It's not very user friendly, especially if you're trying to access an application on your phone. You have to switch between applications, and it also depends on carrier network. And we talked about the Reddit attack as well. So why is MFA growing so fast? Why everybody's talking about MFA, and it's one of the markets that's growing faster in the security, in cybersecurity? First of all, because it protects user credentials. This is how you get access to systems. It ensures that the passwords are being used by the true owner. It's not being used by a hacker that stole your credential. And it protects, I know sometimes people think that this is a little bit harsh, but it protects the user from the fact that at some point in time, a password will be stolen. And usually I say that is not because users don't take care. I'm not saying that anyone here listening to that is not taking care of their passwords. But at some point in time, maybe you bought a product into a website, you had to create a username and password. Maybe you use the same password that you use for another site, and this website wasn't very careful. So someone got inside, were able to do a SQL injection, download the passwords, the hashed passwords. They were able to crack the passwords, and now they have your password. So this is how they can steal your password, not only by using mimikatz or convincing you through a phishing attack. So push-based authentication is something that can help protect your password, especially because it's the best user experience. You put your username and password, and then you receive a push message over your phone to complete the authentication. So talking a little bit about the use cases, where you can apply multi-factor authentication. So first of all, just talking about AuthPoint. AuthPoint is the multi-factor authentication solution from WatchGuard. We try to put the product not only as a security product, a very strong security product, but we also put it under three main pillars. First of all is simplicity. So we try to make something that's very simple, anyone can implement and use in less than an hour. So it's a solution, it's completely cloud-based, there's a quick setup, it's intuitive for the users, and there's the best user experience with push. We also work very hard with integration. So talking about multi-factor authentication is not something that works alone. You have to work and authenticate into different systems. So we have a team, we call it ecosystem team. It just takes care of integrations. Today we have more than 70 documented integrations in our website. So if you use AuthPoint, you want to know how to integrate with Citrix, with Firebox, maybe with other firewall. We integrate with most of the firewalls in the market. You can go to our website, download the integration guide, or look at the integration guide and see how you can configure each one. And finally, affordability. We used to say it's 1 month of essential protection. For one user, it's less than the cost of your morning grande cappuccino. I don't drink cappuccinos at Starbucks, but I would guess this is right. It's less than $2 per user per month.
That's right. Yeah.
So it's something
super affordable.
So yeah.
One thing I was joking about was the affordability was that when last time I went to Starbucks, it was not $2 for a cup of coffee, but it starts at less than $2 a month a user on the low end, and the more users you add, the less per month per user you pay. So we'll have some specific examples at the end, and we're also going to offer some discounts to make it even more affordable than that. But it's way less than that. So just FYI, very affordable.
Yep. So about AuthPoint. So AuthPoint is an application that's in the WatchGuard cloud platform. So basically what it does, it protects the identities when you're trying to access your cloud applications, or you're trying to access your computers, your servers, or you're trying to do a remote access to your network using a remote access application or a VPN application. And we do that with mobile tokens with our AuthPoint app that you install on your smartphone. And some of the ways you can authenticate, maybe you might ask, okay, if I'm protecting my computer, how do I authenticate? And if I'm on an airplane, do I have to buy the costly internet in order to use AuthPoint? We have 3 methods of authentication. All of those are included in the product. The first one is the push-based authentication. So push-based is the most, I would say, the most secure one, and the easiest one is the best between usability and security. Because you receive the push, you have the contact information, the user can make a decision if they approve or deny the authentication. Now, if you don't have data connection on your phone, you can still use 2 methods. The first one is the QR code-based authentication, which is as secure as the push-based authentication, because it's also a sort of a challenge response. So the system will present you a QR code, an encrypted QR code, only your phone can read. Once you read this QR code, it will generate a response that you type back. So it's a challenge response. It's not something that someone can just convince you through the phone to put your phone in front of a regular QR code. So this is much more secure than, for example, a one-time password. We still provide that, which we call the legacy one-time passwords, time-based. You can still use that. You type in the one-time password that changes every 30 seconds. It doesn't depend, it doesn't require data connection for time-based one-time passwords or QR code-based authentication. And what are the use cases? Just some of the use cases. Where can you use AuthPoint? Where can you authenticate? What systems can you protect? So the first one is privileged user access, because usually when hackers attack your network, they're going to try to get in. Once they get in, they're going to try to get a privileged access. The password, the credentials, or the access from someone with an admin profile. So this is a very important place where you should start at least putting MFA. Another place is employee PC and server logon. If you travel a lot, if you have your laptop, you're always traveling, it's always good to protect the login to your computer with MFA, and also your servers, especially if you're doing a lot of remote desktop RDP to the servers. It's also always important to protect it with multi-factor authentication as well. One of the applications I'm going to talk about also is the single sign-on to cloud applications. I think this gives a lot of benefits for the users, and I'm going to show you why. And finally, remote access. We integrate with our own products, of course, with Firebox, but we also support most of the firewalls that are in the market. So about the privileged user access, again, it's when someone is trying to get the profile of a user. That could be a database admin. It could be someone with root access to a Linux system. So any type of access that will get them access to critical information within the company. So this is a very good place where you should be protecting with multi-factor authentication. So maybe they got inside, maybe they use a user credential that's not protected with MFA, but as soon as they start, they want to go and get a root access to a Linux machine or get a privileged access to another system, the MFA should kick in and then block the access of the attacker. The second application or the case study would be the employee PC and server logon. So with that, you can protect users that are traveling, or you can protect the access to the servers using systems like the remote desktop. So users might be carrying critical confidential information in their laptop. You want to be able to protect those computers also with multi-factor authentication.
Hey, Alex, if I could interject something here as well. And we talked about integrations just a moment ago, and you did a good job talking about the over 70 different integrations we have. But the one most critical to me when I see employee PC and server login is that we have a very tight, easy-to-use integration with Office 365. And the reason I bring that up is because a lot of people think they don't use web-facing apps, but their employees are using 365 from home or for a hotel computer kiosk or from a friend's PC. I've seen them use it from a kid's PC. If hackers get into your 365 instance, they can much more easily hyperfish your account. And what I mean by that is they're inside your actual email. We've seen instances where people have come to us after they've been hacked. They found us on the internet, try to help them out. We go in, hackers got into their 365, had set up rules from like a CFO to a CEO so that they could much more easily phish the account, get fraudulent wire transfers, you name it. So when you migrate to 365, to me, MFA is really a requirement. I mean, you cannot be using an email platform that's cloud-based, even if with a complex password, those can be hacked, Mimikatz can get them, and so on. You've got to go to MFA to defend against those spear phishing type attacks. They're getting more and more prevalent.
Yeah, that's a really good point, because I have another interesting story. This was a customer that told me. He said that someone was able to get into their Office 365 account to someone from finance. And what they did, they started monitoring for a month or two, and they saw that at some point in time during the month, this person would issue invoices to different companies for the services they were providing to all those companies with the account information where they should make the payments. So what this guy did is that a few days before, he started sending fake invoices in behalf of this person, but with different account numbers, accounts where people would put the money and then they would get the money and run away. So they lost more than $100,000, and this was an SMB, I would say, someone in the mid market. They lost more than $100,000 just because of this hack, just by sending a few invoices and people depositing money into those accounts. So a lot of people think, well, email is not maybe the problem. Well, email is one of the biggest problems. It's also because they use the emails. A lot of people use the emails to reset passwords. So sometimes you go to a website, you say, okay, reset the password. They're going to send the password to your Office 365 account and then get access to one more application. So it's really critical to protect Office 365 for sure. So remote access is another use case. So, and again, remote access is how usually an attack starts. All it takes is one user with a bad password, or one user with keylogger, Mimikatz, or something that can dump or collect your password, or one user sharing the password or TP through a phishing attack, not maybe willingly sharing the password, maybe through a phishing attack, they would be sharing over the phone on a fake website. So all it takes is just one, and someone would be able to get in no matter which part of the world this person is in. So remote access is or VPN is a type of application that requires MFA as well. And one of the things that I usually say that if you want to gain more user acceptance when you implement MFA in your company is with cloud applications. More and more companies are going to cloud applications. Office 365 is one of those. GoToMeeting, other applications like Salesforce, different applications you can integrate and do what we call the secure single sign-on to cloud applications. You log in once using MFA, and then you web single sign-on to different cloud applications. So basically, this is just to have an idea of how the web single sign-on page would look like with AuthPoint. So you authenticate once with your network password plus the push that you receive and you approve. Once you're in, it's going to show all the applications you're entitled to access. So here we're showing you about 12, 13 applications. And now instead of the user having to remember the passwords for each of those applications, instead of having them create a different password and manage passwords for all those applications, now they just click in one of those applications and it will automatically sign in, because you create a trust relationship between the cloud application and AuthPoint as an identity provider. This is what we call SAML. Technically, SAML is a protocol. So you create this trust relationship. Basically, Salesforce or Office 365 will delegate the authentication to AuthPoint. Once you authenticate once securely with MFA, they will grant you access even though you're using a complete different password.
Yeah, I love this. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, for the user, they don't have to memorize a large number of usernames and passwords. If they say, okay, I don't want to use that, well, if you say, okay, instead of having to remember, create all those passwords, now you just use one, which is the network password. I think it's really convenient for any user and for the admins as well, because they don't have to reset passwords of all those applications. All they have to take care is your network password.
Yeah, I was going to say, Alex, and these are great examples of integrations that we can do, the single sign-on integration. What we see is that once administrators think that users don't want multi-factor authentication because they think it's going to be harder. They think it's going to be more steps. They think it's going to be more effort. And we always want to reduce effort and enable convenience so we can get efficiency and let people do more work and have less hassles. I'm 100% for that. Having used MFA myself now for quite some time using AuthPoint, I can tell you it's significantly better and easier because you do this one-time login and literally I click any of those tiles and I'm instantly securely logged in to all these cloud apps. Lastly, I would say what I love about this the most is that WatchGuard's done an incredibly good job on these integration guides. They are literally step-by-step instructions to integrate with a wide array of these cloud-based applications. I'm not saying it's effortless, but Vertex can do it for you. You've got internal IT that can do it themselves. They can do that as well. But it's very straightforward. It's fully vetted and super easy to do. So users, once they get it, they're not irritated by it. They actually love it, and they're much happier than they have before constantly typing in passwords and remembering all these cloud passwords.
Yeah, 100%. And again, once you integrate, that's it. You don't have to manage that anymore. So you do the integration, and then you have the tile there. Everyone can use. You don't have to go around and manage users anymore. Those applications. So it's really great. I think it's a great application for MFA. Now, a few case studies I would like to share around the world with AuthPoint. The first one I would like to share in the healthcare is a company called MedNet. So they're in the healthcare business. They provide access to patient information that's for patient records, usually for doctors and healthcare companies. So they acquired some license, 500 license for those accessing remotely those patient records. I think one of the most important things in here is that patient records needs to be protected. This here in the U.S. it's a mandate because of the HIPAA. It always says that if you want to expose or you want to provide medical records through some system or remotely through some system, you have to use multi-factor authentication. This is one of the reasons. But one of the other reasons MedNet chose AuthPoint is what they say below. It was really simple to install in their network. So something they could implement and start using right away with no issues at all. So it was a really interesting case. Another one interesting case is this law firm. Basically, it's a law firm focused on accidents, medical negligence. The reason they installed, and it's quite a big company, it's 400 employees, so it's a big company. So they were worried about people getting inside their network and extracting information, confidential information about their customers for different reasons. First, GDPR, which is protecting the data, their customer data, and also because of the financial and reputational damage that would cause if someone would know that they were hacked, that someone got inside and extracted the information. So MFA for them was really important for all the remote access. They want to make sure only authorized people get access to their network, protecting then their customers' information. And the final one is Die-Cut Stickers. It's a fast-growing company. It's a retail company. Most of their employees are remote. They're working remotely, so they wanted to protect the access, the remote access from their employees to their network with multi-factor authentication, but also wanted to protect the computers. Since they're remote users, they use laptops, they log into their computers. And what they said, it's really interesting, and it translates what we try to deliver with AuthPoint. They say, we chose WatchGuard because the solutions they provided were easy to manage, which is simplicity, what we always try. We're always maniacal about simplicity. Security, and it's robust without breaking the bank. So it's also affordable. So I think this is a very interesting case in here because they were able to implement something that would fit their pockets with simplicity and security at the same time. So just to finalize here my part, before I hand over back to I'm gonna just a few things here I just wanted to mention before handing this back to Don, which is losing credentials with passwords. It's easy. MFA implemented the right way can help to protect its use, and the right way it's important, and I put it in red because not all solutions are the right MFA solutions. I've seen push solutions without context information. I've seen people implementing what it's called event-based one-time passwords, which is also not secure. So it has to be implemented the right way. Another thing to keep in mind, you can control the passwords in your company, you can create a policy, but you cannot control if they're using the same password for their social media, for example. And push-based authentication can be a really effective and user-friendly way to protect your credentials. So just to keep in mind, WatchGuard AuthPoint is secure, it's easy to use, and is a great value, less than $2 per user per month. That's what I would like to share. I'm going to be here for questions, but before we finish, I'd like to pass it back to Don so we can talk about some of the great promos here.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Alex. And appreciate the explanation of MFA and how easy it is to use and all the new integrations we've got. That's all exciting stuff. We want to make this easy for clients to try. We've got some special offers. The first one is buy 5 users, you get 5 users free. So the way AuthPoint works is it's a minimum of 5 users to start, and you can buy either a 1-year or a 3-year subscription. But if you buy 5 this month, we'll give you 5 free, and that could be a 1 or 3-year subscription. You might start with just 5 or 10 in this case for privileged users, for people who have domain admin credentials, for your servers. That might be a good start. Second, we also have an opportunity for you to win 10 for free, no charge at all. Just please complete the post-webinar survey that we're going to send by the end of the day tomorrow. At the end of the day tomorrow, we're going to draw a winner at random, and we're going to send you an email enabling you to get 10 free AuthPoint users for a year. That's a list price value of $240. And lastly, if you complete that post-webinar survey by the end of the day tomorrow, you will also receive a coupon from me with a 20% discount off any purchase of 20 or more AuthPoint users. So it's already affordable at $2 a month list price for the smallest subscription. And we give you that coupon for 20% for everybody who attended. And you also have a chance to win 10 for free just by completing a very brief survey. So those are the 3 key takeaways. I hope you take advantage of them. For me personally, I will tell you that it's most important to just get started with this. Just get started. You don't have to roll it out to everybody in the network on day 1, but please put this on your servers. At a bare minimum, have every server have multi-factor authentication. There's really no reason for server access to be granted to someone with just a password. That Mimikatz tool, we didn't demo it via video, but there's some videos out there you can see it. It's scary. Somebody can snag those credentials very easily, get in there. Next thing you know, they're on a server, and who knows what they'll do. You can end up with a ransomware attack like Riviera Beach. It's been in the news today, paying $600,000 in Bitcoin, plus spending about $1 million on new IT stuff because of a high-profile ransomware attack. Or the city of Baltimore. I don't know what role passwords played in those attacks, but it certainly possibly played a role. And MFA, very affordable multi-factor authentication from AuthPoint via WatchGuard, can help protect you. So let's get started by protecting the servers first, and then roll it out to privileged users. And next thing you know, everybody in the network will have it, and they'll love it. I'll keep monitoring the questions. Anybody else has any more, please let us know. I see some comments in there already giving us thanks. Appreciate that, Wayne. If you don't get your question answered here, you can email it to me or Brittany as well. We'll make sure you get an answer. And glad you all joined us today. Anything else in closing, Alex?
No, that's great. Thank you very much for the attention. I think it was a great topic. It's something I like to talk about. It's my passion. And we hope to be soon protecting a lot of customers here in US. I mean, it's there's a lot of attacks going on. Like you saw, this one in Florida, it hit me this morning in here. I was impressed that they are paying like $600,000. It's a lot of money. So it's scary. So, and I always say sometimes some solutions to protect yourself, they're so affordable. Why to go through all those risks and go through all those this pain? So.
I do want to say one last thing. We didn't show it on here, but just the inside geek in me, the gadget guy in me loves this. One of my clients deployed AuthPoint, and then yesterday he literally told me, he has an Apple Watch, and he told me, he's like, did you know that when I try to log into my PC, AuthPoint will pop up on my Apple Watch and I can just click it from there to approve it? It's like, Yeah, no, I knew that. He's like, why don't you talk about that
we
more?
can do that.
I said, I don't know. We should talk about that more. But it works on smartwatches. You can actually just click the login and approve it right from your Apple Watch or smartwatch device. So super easy to use. Please check it out. Look for that survey later today. Fill it in by the end of the day tomorrow to be registered to win and to also get your 20% discount coupon. And remember that buy 5, get 5 free goes to the end of the month. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you again soon, and we appreciate you joining us today. Have a great day.